Hello, everybody. This is Loki, or WayOfLoci, and welcome to the No Hit Podcast. Here it is my job to interview extraordinary gamers who've completed some amazing feats in challenge running, how they approach them, how they learn, and how others can do them too. Whether that be in no hit running, completing games in their entirety without taking a single hit or a point of damage, speedrunning, completing games that may normally take hours and hours in mere minutes, and other such adventures. Today's guest is AntAskew, a no-hit runner and Twitch streamer. That's AntAskew, AntAskew, at Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, who has completed no-hit runs in Bloodborne and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, both infamously difficult games from the huge company From Software, who are known for their Dark Souls series, all extremely difficult games, with these two games Ant having completed without being hit a single time, as well as moving on to the Metroidvania Hollow Knight and the Metal Gear Solid series made by the famous Hideo Kojima. In this talk, we go through how Ant approaches these games, his thoughts on live streaming, as well as some thoughts on the recent Twitch leaks, and many more points. Hope you enjoy, and here is the conversation with AntAskew. Right, so Ant, I appreciate taking some time out for today. Hope you're doing well today.
Good, yeah. I've been really looking forward to do this. Really looking forward to it.
Sweet. So we'll go in and say, you're a no-hit runner. You've done several runs in Sekiro, Bloodborne, but what was your first introduction to challenge running, whether that be no-hit running or speed running or something else entirely?
Okay, well, I need to just say this is the world's first Hitless podcast, isn't it? This is a world's first.
I think the first English one. I think there's a Spanish one going on.
Oh, damn. Well, I edit that out then. We don't want to fake world's first. So first involvement, I used to watch a lot of Lobos Jr. I know it's not strictly challenge running in the way that it is in Team Hitless as such, but he would do a lot of like weird things. So like a randomizer where he had to like pick up whatever he saw, whatever shiny item he saw in Dark Souls 1, for example, he had to pick it up. And if it was something he could use, he had to use it. Mm-hmm. And like some of the streams would just go for hours. He'd get stuck in like the catacombs wearing like havels, and he could barely walk in it, sort of thing, because of like the equip load. And I think that's probably the first. As I say, it's not strictly challenge as we know it, but it's a challenge as such. So I was kind of fascinated in the idea that he had just this crazy game knowledge from like item to item. He knew what everything did, where to find it. Obviously not quite applicable in a randomizer run. And just his understanding of the game and just knowing it like the back of his hand was just so impressive. Like he could jump onto any boss and just fight it, whereas, you know, I started playing like the games not as long as some people, which might get to later on, but seeing just somebody understand something was just so impressive. And from there, I came across the Happy Hob, Faraz Khan, K Witty, and then I learned about Hitless running. And I was like, wow, this is impossible. Like, how are these people do? Like, at the time, obviously, you think, how are these people doing this? And like, they were gods. Like, to it, like, not to put them on a pedestal, but I think especially the earlier runners, like, thinking it was possible. And because I'm sure there was an article where Miyazaki or someone from FromSoft said people shouldn't be able to do this, or it's not possible to do that in these games, and people do, as we know. And I came across Seki because I was a big fan of. I call it. I'm gonna mispronounce this. I know you say Sekiro, and I know that's the right pronunciation, but for some reason, I always call it Sekiro. And like I've learned a little bit of Japanese, and like I know it's incorrect strictly, but it's, you know, when you lock something in your head. So for those who are gonna. Exactly, and it just sticks. And I came across Seki, and obviously he was just insane at the game, and it's just so impressive.
So Seki used to be Sekiro Shadow with speedrunning, and of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Because it's very strange because the Hitless running, or at least the Team Hitless community, which is a community of no-hit runners, traditionally or typically of the From Software games, which are the Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Demon Souls. And as you say, these are very well-known games for difficulty. So I think anyone's like first introduction to it is, how are these people doing these games, which during anyone's vanilla playthrough is a tough ordeal, let's say.
And then from there, I guess it was obviously with COVID and stuff, times not quite as it should be. But I guess it was last June or July last year. Maybe it was a little bit before that. Maybe it's like April time. I was like, maybe I could do Sekiro without dying. And then it was a case of, let's do that. And initially, I was really excited for Ghost of Tsushima last year. This does make sense once I get to it, I promise. And I was like, no, you know what? I'm going to do this Deathless run. And in the end, I've still not played Ghost of Tsushima in favor of doing all these challenge runs. But anyway, yeah, I did the Deathless, and I was like, oh, this feels great. Because obviously the reason for a lot of people with the Souls games and, you know, the Soulsborne hero games, I guess, the feeling of overcoming a challenge is just paramount, at least for me. Like, you know, the law's great and all that stuff, but that moment when you overcome something that you've spent a long time on is just brilliant. So once I did the Deathless run, I went on to Shura, Hitless.
So one of my queries was going to be why Sekiro was your first one. Is that like Seki's influence, or was there something appealing about Sekiro that made you want that to be your first one?
See, it's a weird one. Well, I suppose not that weird, but I only started playing the Souls games back in 2017, and I had to double check this because I didn't want to give a fake year or, you know, misrepresent it. But so I would consider myself new to that, like this genre of game, I suppose. And like from there, I blasted through Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, and then Sekiro came out. I think it's probably a lot to do with Seki's influence and the fact that, as we know, the combat in Sekiro is just it's satisfying to hold in your hand. It's satisfying to watch. So what better way to do a hitless run than like feel really good doing it? I know that applies to all of them once you get into it, but there's something so satisfying about that combat, and I still think it's the best combat. Like, it's cool and stuff, dodging, but deflecting, it's the best.
I personally haven't found a better close combat, like combat mechanics that Sekiro has in like comparable to another game.
Absolutely.
I think it has one of the best, at least in what I played.
Yeah, it's so refined. I mean, the thing that came close for me, or at least I initially thought was going to be close, was Fallen Order, Star Wars, Jedi Fallen Order, and it just doesn't cut it. And I said this to a friend, because I got a friend into playing these games, and I said, you do realise when you finish these games, combat in other games is going to feel not quite right. Like, I'm a big fan of like lots of other games, and sometimes the combat in these games, they just don't cut it, and Sekiro's a perfect example of it's done at its best, and that's why I really want a sequel at some point, because they can't waste that mechanic. It's too good to just let die, I swear. I
do feel like From Software do set a very, very high bar in all the games. Like, I mean, how many articles now from Dark Souls, which is 2011, I believe, and the articles still to this day are like, and this is the Dark Souls of platforming, or Dark Souls of this or that. So like they've both like set their own genre, and then they just keep one-upping themselves again and again.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what's... They do it better. Well, maybe it's not better every time, but they do it well and different. You compare Bloodborne, with the whole... I always call it like a lifesteal mechanic. Oh, well, it's like the rally. Is it rally it's referred to? Like the rally mechanic of... you take a bit of damage and you get it back, your health back when you hit it.
Yeah, so in Bloodborne, when you take damage off a mob, you have a short period of time to strike the foe or the mob and regain some of that health. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and to me, that's just so important because they obviously wanted this really aggressive, fast-paced game, and what better way to encourage that? It's just so well considered, and I will put FromSoft on a pedestal, and I will say that games have got to up their combat if they want to win me over. And unfortunately, Star Wars it's a fine game, Fallen Order, but it's not quite there.
It is interesting that the way that From Software going down, because they did up to Dark Souls 3 and of course Demon Souls as well, but then every game separate from that has introduced a uniqueness that set them aside, as you say, with Bloodborne, with the different mechanics, not just like the that health game, but like the dodging mechanics is slightly different.
Trick weapons
with the
as well.
Trick weapons,
That's
definitely.
really cool.
The Sekiro is all to do with like close combat, as we talked about, and then Elden Ring is now looking to introduce like horse-based combat. From the looks of the trailer, multiple weapon usages, but
I think there's a counter mechanic that I was reading about as well, which you see in the gameplay trailer, where it's like the player character like blocks or deflects or probably that I still don't know how it's going to be, and then they counter with a slash. So maybe Elden Ring's no hit's going to be a counter only run. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. Early days.
In fairness, we've only got a couple of months left, or a few months left. It is right around the corner.
It's true, but it almost feels longer than that, because I feel like, obviously I want to see more, absolutely, but they're keeping us on a tender line at the moment. I want to see more now.
So speaking of Bloodborne, actually, how come, or what was the appeal that made you want to do that for your second run?
Well, I work full time as a job. Sorry, not as a job, in a job, and so streaming time's limited. So I stream 3 times a week, and 2 of those instances I only stream for probably around 3 hours, 3-hour sessions, and then a longer session of like maybe 4 to 5. So the appeal of a quick, short run, and don't get us wrong, I'm not as quick as some of the other hitless runners out there, but I like to be able to think I can squeeze maybe 2 runs in a stream.
Yeah.
Maybe a third, depending on how many resets you're doing. So that was always an appeal. And I don't know, there's really good strategies out there with that game. And I mean, that comes back to the hitless community. There's, everything's so refined. But I thought, you know what, with these strategies, I can do this. I can do this.
Because I think Bloodborne is probably the second quickest after Shore, isn't it? Probably just like an hour and a half, or maybe just under.
Yeah. Oh, you could. Yeah, absolutely. Like I think I was on an hour and a half, like the higher end when I did it, and I'm pretty slow at stuff, and you might stop and like, because I'm streaming while I do it, so you're chatting and stuff. It's definitely a comfy run in terms of length. So it's always been length as a draw for me.
Yeah.
And obviously wanting to play the game. I think that's a big thing.
And now moving on to Hollow Knight as the main one, although you have also ventured into outside of the From Software ones. I mean, Hollow Knight is separate, but also part of the community as well, but into stuff like Metal Gear Solid. So we've talked about this before, like on stream and such, like, but do you want to just explain like the Kojima, your like love for Kojima and Metal Gear Solid's series?
Yeah. So I'm in my I'm 33. I'll say it. There we go. So when I was a kid, Metal Gear Solid came out. I can't remember how old I was. I think the game came out in '98. So work it out from there. And I was just blown away by that game. And I still am to this day. Like I think Hideo Kojima's work is just groundbreaking. I'm a big fan. I know people don't like. It's very Marmite in some ways. People are very against like all the long cutscenes, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But yeah, I grew up on Metal Gear Solid, and I kind of, once I started doing these challenge runs, I really wanted to kind of impress child me. It was like I wanted to do it not just for me, but for the old me. I want to do this game damageless, and there's a weird thing when you'll know yourself when you start running, and I think a lot of people are like this. It's your appreciation of the game can change. I've like my appreciation of Bloodborne, because it was never one of my favorite FromSoft games. I liked it a lot, obviously, but running it really adds a new appreciation of the mechanics, the bosses, the music. Probably because you're just replaying it again, and you really start appreciating it. But there's times where it can go the other way, and while I was kind of anxious with Metal Gear Solid that, what if I do this and I don't like it as much anymore? What if I pick up on faults that are problems that, I've always looked at with rose-tinted specs sort of thing. And I kind of did see problems, but that was more to do with the difficulty of the run. So with it being an older game, there's a lot more limitations, not only kind of with technology, but I guess like responsiveness of controls is certainly a thing. This isn't necessarily a product of its time, but in comparison to like Dark Souls, your movement options are there. You've got options to dodge, as Sekiro's deflect. You've got a way around something, whereas in Metal Gear Solid, it's so limited. It's so limited. If you get spotted by an enemy, you're probably going to get shot. Which, yes, you can hide and you can run away, but if something shoots at you, it's pretty much a hit, guaranteed every time. Whereas a first-person shooter game, it's almost like the enemies are a little stupider in ways, in that you can kind of peek out from cover and you've got an option to kill them, whereas in Metal Gear Solid, as soon as you line up a shot, you're probably just going to get hit in the process.
Yep.
It's a very different beast from what I'm used to with the other games.
And I'd say an added difficulty would be apart from perhaps a few things out there, doing this on your own kind of thing, as opposed to stuff like the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wanted to mention this anyway because like I used a lot of your guides for stuff, and my brain isn't. I can copy something and I can rinse and repeat something until I kind of get it down. Like I love that aspect of it, but at least at the moment, I don't feel my brain is wired to find new things out. So like, there's people in the Hitless Discord that are posting new strategies like today for like games that are years and years old, and my brain just doesn't function like that. I don't know why, and it's a shame. It might change for Elden Ring. Maybe I'll be a pioneer, but I doubt it. But yeah, with Metal Gear Solid, there's a few instances online of people doing a non-segmented damageless run. I even went into the Metal Gear Solid speedrunning Discord, which they're all great, but they were like, "What, you want to do this non-segmented?" And they couldn't quite grasp that. And I was like, "Yeah, I know it's going to be a pain."
This insane proposal?
Exactly. And I mean, at the time, I thought, it can't be that bad. It can't be that bad. And it really was. So what I'm getting at is having the resources there, or even having someone else run the game at the same time as you can bounce ideas off each other. So I was basing my entire strategy essentially on speedrun strategy, which is fine. A lot of them are very, very good, but their goal isn't to not get hit, so it doesn't always translate.
If I just go backwards for a second.
Sorry.
The difficulty within Dark Souls and these typical no-hit games in the community are learning the bosses and learning the running sections inside and out. And a lot of things, RNG is about like reducing RNG to as little as possible, being able to understand when a boss is moving, to understand the tells in their movement, to know when to dodge, when to roll, when to deflect. And that's the difficulty in learning all that for each of the games throughout for an extended period of time, like until you finish the game. What's the main difficulty or difference between something like that and within Metal Gear Solid?
I mean, there's so many. I've got so many sections in my mind. For anyone who's played Metal Gear Solid, it's actually a deceivingly long game. I don't know whether that's based on the hardware I'm playing on, because there's something in the games called codec calls, which it's basically like the exposition of the game is kind of told at you through these conversations, like a radio codec call where it's like two characters talking to each other, and you can't skip that properly. You can skip through the text, but that adds time to the run, and a longer run is like it's more time. You can't kind of reset and start again as much as I mentioned on the limitations of streaming, and a longer run is more pressure. Like 100%, like you'll know yourself, the longer the run, you've got to be on the ball that bit longer, and the longer it spreads out, the tension gets worse, sort of thing. But there's certain sections in the game that I know no game is designed to be done with no damage, but I really feel like this game is just. I know people have done it, so it can be done, but you'll enter a room and there'll be a small cutscene, and already the enemy's shooting at you as soon as the cutscene ends.
It's like, instead of just being like ambivalent, it's like designed to be against you instead.
Yeah, absolutely, and maybe that's a design choice, because you are this one you're Solid Snake. You're this one character kind of going into the belly of the beast to save the world, essentially. And there's some areas where you're in a small square. There's a scene where you're in a lift, and there's 4 guards in there, and they're all invisible because they've all got stealth on, and they just all open fire on you straight away. And there's a lot of interesting tech that the speedrunners do, where it's they'll do like quick weapon swaps, so you can essentially cook a grenade, but you can cancel the animation of the throw by quickly unequipping it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of like nuanced stuff like that, but there's just it's really. I mean, I would love to see more people give it a shot, but the limitations in the game in terms of movement just make it a real chore. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is I had to take a step back, and it took a long time to. I was in such a turmoil. I don't know if anybody listening or yourself has been in a situation where a run it wears you thin. It really wears you thin. And I was like that with Immortal Severance, actually. And I promised myself when I finished Immortal Severance that I would never grind a run in the same way. Like on my lunch breaks at work, I would maybe boot up the game and fight Owl a few times, get him in the door, just get it locked down. And I do think you can over-practice. And I basically promised myself I wouldn't put as much mental energy into a run again. And I was doing that with Metal Gear Solid, so it was taking its toll. I'd start a run, and I'd think, all right, this next boss, I know what I'm doing. And then once you get hit in that game, it leads to more hits very easily. So if you're too close to a guard, it knocks you down to the ground. There's a hit. And by the time you stand up, there's more guards in the room shooting at you. And it's it's rough.
It also, I personally find that as well, whenever you get a hit, especially if it's in a place where you're not expecting or that you've rooted or practiced a lot, the sort of surprise or shock that you've been hit then leads to another hit because
absolutely,
at least for me, I'm quite dramatic. I'm just like, hang on a sec, what's happened here? And whilst I'm like doing that whole pantomime, another thing's come over and hit me because I'm not watching the screen.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. It's totally true. And then I want to praise someone here because the person's guide their run I was watching for kind of how they did certain things. I've spoke to them about it, and they don't really have any of the strats noted down anymore, but you can kind of tell visually. They did the run in 3 weeks.
Oh, damn.
In 3 weeks. And when they told me that, I died a little bit inside because I'd just come off the back of Immortal Severance when I started it. And I'll tell you what, there's a point where you do a big run, or what feels like a big run, and you kind of think you're better than what you are. And I thought I would go into Metal Gear Solid. It was a false confidence. I was going to Metal Gear Solid. I played it enough as a kid. I'll breeze through this, and it really knocks you down. Like I've got to learn a brand new game, not just like transferring skills I've already got, but I've got to go in really fresh.
Yeah,
and so it takes its toll.
I think it is a difficult thing, and it's a problem in any case of comparison, whether it be in challenge running or any degree in life. Comparison is difficult because there'll always be either advantages or just personal, like people can just be personally better at certain aspects, can be better at a game and get things, and it can be difficult to separate that sometimes. Like I'm personally not the best at any particular game, but I like going into more detail in terms of making guides or doing boss breakdowns. So it's like finding your kind of niche in terms of how you approach things, I personally find.
But you're saying that like you don't have this huge catalogue of Hitless runs now? You've got so many?
I mean, a lot of them are very short.
Still, like, don't... Like, that's another interesting thing with mentioning that I did Deathless and the whole Shura thing. People within the community, and this isn't a criticism at all, but people think certain games and certain runs are easy, and maybe in the grand scheme, but you still get people who, like, I'll say a casual player who, to them, it's like, it's impossible. Like, we've all been in that position where it feels impossible, so I don't, like, all of these games are hard. I don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
I would definitely agree. deathless, hitless, anything that pushes you past the normal case, especially in games like these, as mentioned, From Software like to make some masochistic games for people to enjoy. I think that's an aspect of the growing community, the fact that because it's, I'm not exactly sure why this is, but I know it's like an effect, but because so many more people have done the runs, it has the effect of seeing them as not being as difficult, which
Absolutely.
which has certain reasons why, such as because more people are running, there is more people coming up with strats which make the runs quotations easier. So there is that aspect, but the runs themselves are still difficult. They're still tricky for anyone like running new. Like if choose a run that you want to run, and may have an easier time quotations in comparison to a past tense, but the run itself is still a difficult run.
Not only based on skill, but as a mental thing. Like I'm big into the whole mindset of a run. Like I try to get in the right mindset. Another thing, I don't spread myself thin. Like I see a lot of like people. You're not. I don't want to say the word guilty, but you don't do it quite as much as some people. But like I've got friends who I've met within doing this kind of thing. They'll have so many runs going on at once, and there was an analogy I saw which was if you're growing a line of pumpkins. This is probably not going to. I hope this works. Basically, they're all going to grow relatively small. Whereas if you just grow one big pumpkin, it's going to be nice and juicy and big. So that's why I will always do one run at a time. And that can have its negatives as well, for sure. And I think you're going to say why in a moment. Because you like to spread it out a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that. So I've got several unfinished runs, quite a few of which have gotten to the later stages. I think in some cases it's the need of variety. In some cases, when like you mentioned too, with Mortal Severance, you get into that grind aspect, and some people can just go through it. And I've gone through it with certain runs, but sometimes I've just needed to find a way. Especially with a case with myself was I've been running Pantheon of Hollow Nest in Hollow Knight, which is a 42 boss gauntlet or boss rush, for quite a while, and recently I've taken a break sort of from it, or taken some time off it, because I wasn't able to do other stuff that I was interested in, such as making guides. So I was able to take a break from that and do a Cuphead, another run, and was able to do other stuff around that. So I think it's like trying to find a way to get out of the grind, knowing that you can always return to it, especially if there is other things catching your interest. I think it is a very personal thing.
Oh, absolutely. I'll always try. If I do want to play a different game, I'll always ensure that it's a very different game. Like I wouldn't want to play another Metroidvania while I'm doing a Hollow Knight run, because I know maybe this is just a limitation of me, but things when I go back to Hollow Knight, maybe my muscle memory will be in line with something else, and so on. And I think that can kind of contaminate the run a little bit, which you don't want to have. You don't want to have. Because I was actually going to do. There's a reason for this, and I was going to do Dark Souls 3 instead of Hollow Knight, because the purpose was, I was under the impression that Dark Souls 3 was a more popular game for people to watch on Twitch. So I was like, this, maybe I can get some more viewers, because, we're both streamers. A lot of people who do the runs are streamers. I thought, that could be a good way to do it. And I really didn't have the spark in the game. I was watching Rootin', and I was watching Mikolash's early patches route, which is very good, by the way. But I just didn't have a spark to want to practice. Yeah. So my message to those who might want to learn something from the podcast is, if you're not into a game, do not even attempt to run it. Don't force yourself to do a game unless you really enjoy doing it, because you'll not see it through. That I wasted a few weeks when I could have already started Hollow Knight, for example.
Yeah, I think we'll go to the aspect, streaming aspect, because that is a huge part of this community and of challenge running in general, I think. But yeah, there is that aspect of having to do something can be popular, and there can be times of taking advantage or making use of that. But there is also the case of being able to be, because streaming's entertainment in most cases. There is cases of like educational content, but in most cases it's entertainment content. And if you're running a game that you don't enjoy or thoroughly enjoy or falling out of love with, it won't be as pleasant of an experience for those watching.
Definitely.
I did like as well something you mentioned in terms of the difference between playing the game itself and then playing it as a challenge run, in terms of seeing it differently, which I think's definitely correct, as I feel you pay a lot more attention to the game and see things that you otherwise wouldn't. Like the biggest example I would say would be bosses. Like when you're looking at how the boss's arm moves and seeing if that's a tell.
Well, it's your cricket bat analogy, isn't it? For fire machine.
Yeah, so I make some very weird. I mean,
it's not weird. It works.
Very weird tells. Maybe weird descriptors then.
So mentioning those, like my background in games, obviously I mentioned Metal Gear Solid. I used to play a lot of fighting games. Like I played Street Fighter like very intently for a lot of years. I'd gone to a few local tournaments. I was like, I was one point I was working a night shift job, and I would finish work and I would sit and play Street Fighter pretty much all day. But the point is, that kind of really grinding down to brass tacks and like learning the way, because that game is pretty like fighting games, always compared to a game of chess. Now I think it's very similar with Dark Souls bosses. You learn what you can punish and you learn what you can't. And I always felt that knowledge really, or that experience really helped me with challenge runs. You break it down to risk versus reward, and with hitless running, it's all about reward. You want to reduce that risk, at least me personally, and that kind of brings around the different strats thing, because some people prefer more stylish, quicker things, whereas I'm more about safety.
That is definitely an interesting personality thing you see with different runners. Of some just so good they can just do what they want. Some enjoy having a bit of speed to it as opposed to 100% safe. I mainly try and focus on a little bit of a combination of both, but more weighing towards the safety aspect.
Absolutely.
But it is interesting seeing the different ways people approach games, even in just this, like in this small niche of these no hit runs, that there is still that variety of strats. Even like there can be 3 to 4 strats on a single boss or on a single running sections that, depending on the person, may do differently.
Yeah, and that's part of the fun. It's like trying those different ways out and seeing what sticks for you and tweaking it if you need to tweak it and stuff like that.
So we talked a little bit about speedrunning there. Has speedrunning ever caught your interest, or is there a reason why Hitless appeals to you more?
I hope I don't ruffle some feathers with this. And it's not like I'm going to say something mega controversial or anything, but speedruns are mega impressive. Whether it be like glitches are allowed or glitchless, whether it be like skips and stuff like that. But for me, I think as a viewer, as a casual, someone who flicks on a stream, a speedrun is way more appealing. And I think that's why speedrunning streams are way more popular. People like to see a game that took them 10 hours done in 40 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever, I think it's a lot more easy for someone to kind of get behind that than someone working through a game without getting a hit. The tension's very different. But for me, it's kind of hard to explain. There's obviously knowledge that goes between the two. Like, they are transferable. And, like, the speedrunners are very impressive. And obviously all the hitless runners are impressive. But there's something about seeing someone get to Gwyn, for example. They got 0 hits, and this is the moment. Like this, this is it. You're holding your hands up in the air like Goku. Someone giving Goku energy for a spirit bomb kind of thing. You want them to do it. That's just the most fun, and like that pressure is just amazing. I know there's pressure with a speed run, and motorbike somewhere speeding past.
Apologies.
No, it's okay. Whereas personally, the reason I've never dive too much into speedrunning is, from a streaming point of view, I've always found, like for me at least, the entertainment and the interaction with whoever's in your stream, whether it be 2 people or 10 people, whatever, is more important to me. So between bosses, that's my time to chat and like talk shit or make joke, whatever. You know, like 'cause those running sections, especially in the likes of like Sekiro, you pretty much hold up forward through a lot of them, like controversially, but yeah. So for me, like a speedrun is 100% focused, and I know there's a lot of good speedrunners out there who interact with chat and they do a really good job of that, but for me, I don't want to be turned on, not in a lewd way. I don't want to be that much on at all times. You know what I mean? It's
you're punished a lot more if you deviate that focus within a speed run. Of course, you can be punished very heavily by getting whacked in a hitless run, but you do have a lot more opportunities to interact with the people in chat.
Yeah, and for me, that's more paramount. Whereas, yeah, maybe, I don't know. To be honest, Hollow Knight's been the closest game, or the game that I've been playing that I've thought, this would be really fun to speedrun. And then I looked at speedrun.com, and I saw how competitive, like the top... I know they're all competitive, but the timings between the top, like a big chunk at the top, is seconds. I thought, I can't hit that. I can't be getting 32 minutes or whatever the rough time is. I don't know, but yeah. And then Hitler speedrun is a whole different beast.
Oh, that's some... I don't know who came up with that.
No,
but
some cruel person came up with the headless percent for Sekiro, and that was just... Yeah. I tried it, and I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah, I think an aspect with the speedrunning is you talk about the pressure moving toward, like, I think hitless running, in terms of viewing, it's quite top-heavy, and by that I mean as a runner approaches the later game and towards the end game, there is a, like, culmination of people, like, for instance, say someone is streaming the game, they may reset a few times in the stream, but as they approach the later games, the viewers will increase, the pressure will increase, the competition will increase, and I think within a speed run, there is obviously that aspect, as there isn't any, like, any run that there'll be that end surge, but I think in a speed run, there's something always going on, if you know what I mean. There's always a strat, or it's always
time
going
saves and stuff like that.
Or just going at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and it sort of catches your attention more, maybe, as opposed to, like, if I'm just doing like 2 steps away from a boss, or in a running section to try and wait for a mob to pass by. But just in terms of that popularity difference, or at the current moment at least, speed running. We've talked a few times about the community aspect, but just want to touch on that again. So we mentioned Team Hitless, which is a Twitch and Discord community which started around the From Software series, and now has branched out to several others, including the Resident Evil series, the Cuphead, and Hollow Knight. And hopefully will then include Silksong, cross fingers when it comes out, all that. But I think it's great because there is such a vast resources now of people willing to share tips, have guides, and I think it's just a very easy community to get into, even if you're not either a runner or have just started running. And just, have you any thoughts on the community? Because let's say we're both pretty new to the community, I would say. I've only been just over a year and such.
Yeah, like I thought you would have been in. I think I'm only just over a year, so you mustn't have been in long ahead of me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
No, I only sort of came in when Sekiro started being running, as that was my first one.
Okay. But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's such a wide range of, like, personalities and, like, people from different backgrounds, and that's good to see. Like, for me, that feels good. Like, there's so many different abilities in terms of like skill levels, and that's always nice. And as you mentioned, if you need, like, assistance with anything, there's going to be someone who is just insanely knowledgeable at said game. He'll just be like, right, that's that thing that you've seen 1 in a million times, I've seen that twice in a million, and they know how to deal with it, that kind of thing. And that to me is just always impressive. Though it does bug me when people come in and they ask a question like, "Oh, where do I find the guide for this?" And there's a guide section on the left of the Discord. How the mods, like not to blow smoke up the mods' arses or put them on a pedestal, but they've got some patience sometimes. They've got some real patience. But yeah, it's very welcoming. And it's nice to see, even since I first got my run, the amount, I would love to see like a big, I like crunching the numbers sometimes. I would love to see how many more runners there is now than what there was then. And I know you mentioned that more people are getting runs because maybe it's popularity grown, and as well as strategies getting better and more accessible. And it's just there's just so many like driven people to just exceed and excel, and people like yourself making like really good guides that, because without the guides, like it's more intimidating. It feels more impossible when there's not strategies and there's not guides that are easy accessible, and like it's such a good hub for that kind of thing. It's really good.
I think it's also that's, like I say, hub's a really good word for it, especially because they're like micro communities as well. Because, like I say, there is the different guides, so there is the Team Hitless overall, but then if you're a Bloodborne runner, you also have that micro community within the Bloodborne channel of runners who know the stuff and who don't know as much stuff, who then go into know stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But yeah, I think we've touched on it a few times, is the no hit running. A very large aspect is, I'd say perhaps more so than speedrunning, because I think a lot of speedrunning is also done offline, but live streaming and no hit running sort of goes hand in hand, or has started. There has been, I think, a lot more offline runs as the popularity and as the community and the no hit challenge run itself has become more well known. So a lot more offline stuff has appeared. But I think live streaming is a good home for no hit running, I think, as opposed to speed running, which can have a record offline.
Yeah.
But the hype that goes into and like the build up for a no hit run, I think is something different. I think
It is. It's weird. I remember when I first got my first one, I told my mum about it, and she was like, "Okay." And I was like, "Mum, I've spent a lot of time doing this, and I tried to kind of ham it up and like be like, not many people have done this, And I mean, a lot of people have, but in the grand scheme, it's probably a low percentage, I guess. But yeah, maybe it's I don't know whether, the Carl Jobst video, maybe that's brought a lot of people in. And you're right what you say. I see a lot of comments, people saying, do I have to stream a run? Can it be offline? Da da da. And I do think there's a lot more offline, but it's like going to a football match, isn't it, really? Like the spectacle, the event aspect of like the larger hitless runners, especially, like the God Run 2 runners, that kind of thing. You're there, you're invested. If you, like, obviously, as you mentioned before, towards the end of a run, the viewers skyrocket, but you feel really invested in that. There's like a journey aspect. Like, it's almost like a series, like an episodic series. You're getting through the series and hoping to hit the finale and get the end result.
I say the popularity, I believe, it is getting more and more so. One thing I've noticed is the Spanish community around no hit is huge. Like as big, if not big. I believe actually bigger than the English side, and getting more coverage. Like I think, as well as you say, the Carl Jobst, who is a YouTuber who makes content around speedrunning mainly, but did coverage of the no hit community, in specifically around a streamer called Dina Singale, who did God Run, which the God Run is the original God Run was a 5-game run of the From Software games by the Happy Hob, another streamer, and Dino did a Soul Level 1, which is no leveling up. So Pokemon, you never level up from level 5, but you just get but they go through that, so that was a game focused on that. And Carl Joe's having a large audience. I think that brought in a lot of people, and then a lot of like I say, large Spanish creators covering it. I can't remember. It's Alex something with 10,000 viewers. He's been streaming No Hit stuff, Chuson Montero, who's
that's the name I was thinking of. Yeah,
he has thousands of streamers, and then up and coming Spanish streamers like Zerob in Hollow Knight, Dorada, and then we've got people in the English community obviously increasing, like Dino, as I mentioned. He's grown massively up this last year. Happy Hob is always going to be like the godfather of, or like the originator of no hit runs, doing the very first Dark Souls one, and then many others, V-Sphere, Mixboozy, plenty of others.
No, I agree, especially with the Spanish community. It's wild, like so like passionate as well. I remember when there was the Team Hitless events and it was Spiral out against, was it Mark? I can't remember.
I am Mark.
Mark,
I am Mark. I think.
I am Mark. Sorry,
so.
Sorry, Mark. Like the chat was going wild. Like there was so many Spanish viewers in there. It was just wild. I think they kept calling like El Presidor or something like that, or El Presidente or something like that. It was great. And great event. A great event. But it's mentioned. Funny you mentioned like the popularity of it, because my viewers, because I started as more of a variety streamer. And since I've done challenge runs, my viewers have really fluctuated between game. Like Sekiro is probably most popular, but it depends on like the casual viewer, I think, at times, because my friend's sister was once watching the stream with her, and she texted me after the stream saying she wants to know why you keep doing the same bit over and over again. And maybe that says more about my ability, but I can see why people from the outside, maybe that's the wrong way to describe it, but casual viewers, they might just not get it. Maybe they just don't get it in the same way that we do, or they don't consider it as impressive, and that's interesting to me. But I feel like once you start streaming challenge runs, I almost feel like you're locked in a little bit. 'Cause I know when I've played games that haven't been remotely challenge run-esque, or just a casual run of the game, your numbers just tank.
I think that's
absolutely tank.
Might also be just a feature of Twitch itself or streaming itself, in terms of what an audience recognizes from you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's something you essentially establish yourself, and you set that precedence, I suppose. And then for you to change it up, it's like, oh, you're not meant to play Darkest Dungeon. You should be getting hit in games or not getting hit.
Yeah, it is a strange one in terms of, I mean, streaming in itself is a slightly weird thing to do. In fairness, it's just
it is. It really is.
Stream gameplay. Yeah, I think that is an aspect of just streaming. Really, I mean, there can be that just do challenge running, but I think people who've done WoW or done FPS, if they ever like deviate or try and do something else, there is a huge change. And I think it's like a build up of like a core audience who like are there for any random thing. I don't know. It is an interesting one. But speaking of events, as you were saying, the Spiral and I am Mark, but Team Hitless putting on more events, and then there have been other things like Team Widers and then GG Talent Group, which is a talent agency. They previously put on thanks Motorbike. They put on events, and it's so interesting seeing the actual numbers, that because it's like the community is there's a good term someone used. It's like passive audience or something like that. When if there is an event, then the people will appear, but otherwise they're in the background kind of thing, and they're just keeping an eye. But once that event happens, they just like surge. Like the first Hitless event, which was several races, like game races of different runners. So in say Dark Souls, there was two runners battling against each other to finish the game with the least amount of hits in the quickest time. And those first events, like the first day, like went to hundreds, and I think it reached 1,000
it did
viewers, and that was like the first event.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't stream on the same time as a Team Hitless event, because nobody will show up. And I think that's great. Like, it's bad for the stream, but it's great that it just like sucks people in like a magnet. We've all been. I think it's like a weird camaraderie that we've all kind of been through the same thing. I'm making it sound like we've been through like a horrible tragedy, but Well, I suppose we have, in a sense, we've all been through the countless resets. We've all done it.
Self-imposed tragedy.
Yeah, it is, and there's a weird camaraderie with that, and I think it's a thing of beauty.
Well, I think it's just the same as someone running a marathon. Someone who also has run a marathon knows the training that person has got to put in, knows like the early mornings or late evenings or finding the time, and knows that like 21-mile barrier when the demons are in the head. Like because you've both been through it, you understand. Even though it's just someone crossing a line, and it's the same in like the challenge running, you understand the practice that person's had to put in, whether on stream, off stream. Yeah.
And then there's these awful prodigies out there who are just hitting out runs, like people doing Shura, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, they've done Immortal Severance. And based on my experience, that doesn't happen. But maybe that says more about me or more about like the strategies now. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of factors, like as you say, time restrictions. So who knows if you had more time available, had more focus time, and sorts like that. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. There can be
True.
There can be just the straight to like natural skill, but I think there's so many other potential factors that you have to break down first.
Like what's going on in someone's life?
Yeah.
Are they busy thinking about other stuff?
Yeah.
And I think you can over practice as well for those who are interested. And I think you can practice badly. I remember there was one time I was practicing against Sword Saint on stream, and I was too busy kind of chatting and having an enjoyable stream. So basically all of that practice was for nothing because it wasn't quality practice. Yeah. It was lazy practice, and I think lazy practice is bad. That's what I'm trying to say.
I would definitely agree with that. There are cases when I've tried to do some practice and like had a video off on the side, and just like, because I'm putting the time in, then that's going to equal something. But it needs to be, and the same with anything really. If you're going to like do work or learning something, like if you're learning a language or learning code or editing a video, then it like focus is one of the biggest things out there in terms of maximizing that effort or that time, which extends beyond challenge running, of course.
Absolutely.
So we talked about the live streaming aspect. A little side segment. What would you say? It can be challenge run. It could be other. What would you say your most hype moment or hype story that you could remember, or memorable moment from your streams or a previous stream?
Oh God. It's got to be Immortal Severance. I nearly cried. I was very, very close to crying, and everybody has different kind of investment of value on a run. And whereas, because I finished Shura in the August of last year, and just as I touched on before, I thought, it's only like, what, 4 extra bosses or something? It's like, I've got the first bit down, this is going to be fine. But it's such a different beast than that. It's such a different beast. It's like a longer run, which we've mentioned, length can be certainly a factor. So I was like so mentally invested in this run and getting it. And I got it on New Year's Eve of last year. And a few days previously, I got to like Sword Saint. I think I was like my furthest distance PB. And this is over months. This is over a long period of time. I had the entire early game just nailed on, and you get stuck at hurdles. So it's got to be Immortal Severance. And I think not just that one stream, but that entire week leading to it, because I got to Sword Saint a few times. Like the first time I could literally hear my own heartbeat, kind of like the blood pulsing through your vein, like through your neck or wherever, and I could hear probably a lot faster than that. I was like, this is why I do this. This is the pressure, and this is the stress that makes us want to do that.
It's worth it after all the pain.
Absolutely. And then that moment of doing it was like just a weight off your shoulders. And I'm still like I did Bloodborne, and I didn't really. I enjoyed doing it. Obviously, it's a very, very fun game. And I think it's the only game I've done so far that I would consider doing an all bosses run of, because I just think it's a really fun game. But even getting that run, it didn't quite compare to that. I wasn't. Maybe it's based on how much time you put into it. I did that a lot quicker, the Bloodborne one, so it's maybe it depends on how much time you invest. It's like anything. If you spend months and months and months doing something, when you finally do it, it's that's the feeling. That's the one. So yeah, that's my, I guess, top moment.
Yeah. I've got some quick questions to close out, but is there anything else you wanted to natter about first, or?
I want to mention a bit about the practice, like approach to learning, as you word it, which I think is a great way. I don't know about you, but for me, it changes very much from game to game.
Yep.
In terms of Hollow Knight so far, I want to use that as the example. I've spent more time just trying to learn the route, because as everybody knows, especially on their first Hollow Knight playthrough, it's a maze. It's an absolute maze, and the map isn't helpful sometimes, and it's hard to navigate. So this isn't a criticism of anybody who's done guides like yourself, but watching the runners, they're so quick at going from area to area and area. Like they dash around, and they all of a sudden they're on a new screen, and they're like, whoa, which way did you go? And the way I learn, I tend to get I've got a black book here somewhere, and it's just full of essentially checkpoints or like bullet points of like pick up the twin shards for Bloodborne, grab the Akko, grapple up here, crouch, whatever. It's for Sekiro. It's all kind of step by step, and I found I couldn't do that with Hollow Knight, because it's you've got to, if you're watching someone's route, you've got to follow it visually, and you don't have that time to. If you're pausing it, you'll spend hours pausing it non-stop. So I think it changes game to game, and this is maybe advice for people who are starting out. I don't know, but if you find a method that works, and I think the Happy Hob is a prime example of this. I see people in his chat saying, "Oh, that way of doing that's so outdated. Blah, there's such an easier way of doing it now." There probably is, but he is so used to that method, and he doesn't need his brain to learn anything new, if that makes sense. So once you find a way of doing something, stick with it. If you find something a little easier, maybe tweak it a little bit. But I think the good example of that is the Father Gascoigne fight in Bloodborne. I followed Zaffa's guide, which Zaffa's a great runner, and his guide's brilliant. And he does the music box not on the stairs, so it doesn't involve like the stair cheese as such. And I'd have people coming into chat saying, "Oh, the stairs cheese is like so much easier." Blah blah blah. Stick with your guns.
Definitely, I definitely agree with the thoughts around Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight was the first run that sort of required notes, and then led me to do it a lot more on the rest of it, because written notes is quite handy for several reasons. But Hollow Knight was the first run that required, because of the traversal system being so different from just a typical like 3D game, which I think is which I had to think around, and I think a big aspect is the difference or the difficulty of visualization in a game like Hollow Knight in terms of traversing. Because say you learn a 3D game like Dark Souls, or the route or no-hit route for Dark Souls or Sekiro. Sekiro's probably a bit easier, actually. You could, if you learnt it well enough, probably go through it in your mind. You could close your eyes and probably go through the run. But Hollow Knight, I feel, is a lot more difficult to do that. Because of the room changes, because I don't know, just because of the 2D element of it. Your thoughts?
Well, part of the difficulty with Hollow Knight is the platforming as well. You can't really you can kind of turn, like when you're running up to the castle in Sekiro, you can kind of turn off mentally a little bit, whereas you don't really get that breather with Hollow Knight, because there's going to be some funky enemy that you need to avoid or whatever else.
Definitely. We've went past the live streaming aspect, but I can always switch things around. But I was interested in your thoughts on why do you think so many people were surprised or had the reactions they did in regards to this Twitch leak, which it has recently happened. And for people listening to this podcast much later, this has been, or a few days ago, there was a leak of Twitch's data, which had leaked to a whole host of things, but the thing that a lot of people went to, which was probably the smallest thing on what was leaked, but was
definitely.
content creators or streamers' income from Twitch, which included their sub revenue, ad revenue, and bits. But there was surprise and offended. I don't know if that's the right term, but
It's such a mixed bag that's came. I mean, firstly, I want to say, I mean, it might not feel great for the people who've had their kind of income leaked, whereas I know the likes of Pokemon have since tweeted out saying, like, look, people, I'm not getting as much as you think, and I think that's kind of been good. And of course, wage transparency, I think, in any industry, and like at the end of the day, Twitch is an industry. It is a business at the end of the day, and I think if everybody's too, like, let's say an office, for example, if everybody's too scared to say how much they're on, I mean, presumably people are on different amounts in this theoretical office. Chances are someone's going to be getting underpaid.
Yep.
Like that's the top and bottom of it for whatever reason. Whether they're just because they don't know people are on more, they don't ask about it. So the people at the top are just like, well, it's fine as they are. Mind you, it's great that this is leaked to a degree, but they could have just not touched the password. I don't like changing passwords. I don't like having to change passwords.
Yeah.
I hate it.
That is definitely.
So I think in that regard, it's great, but could have left the passwords.
That's definitely, in terms of that transparency thing. It's really good. There is a very top level streamer called Ludwig, and he made a video around the matter pretty soon afterwards, talking about it as for those who don't, so little bit of technical info on how Twitch works or Twitch creator income works. When you sub to a streamer, they get a percentage of that subscription. So it used to be a flat $5. I know there's been changes to do with countries and stuff like that, but I won't go into that. So we'll just go with the straight $5. So you donate, you subscribe for that $5. That creator will get a percentage of that. For an affiliate, that would be 50%, straight 50%. So 50% would go to Twitch, 50% would go to you, which would be $250. Well, once you become a partner and past that and other factors included, that percentage can change. There's been allegedly 70% would go to the creator, and then within Ludwig's video, he mentions that that percentage split could also be even more varied than that, from 70 to 80 to 100%. So that entire $5 that you subscribe for could be going to the creator. And because of this leak, creators can see, or at least make calculations and estimates around those percentage differences. So if, say, in the top 100 creators, a 99th and a 97th creator, if they're getting different subscription percentages, and that's now visible because as part of their contracts, they can't disclose what their percentage is, they can now see that and query with Twitch. And as you say, it's all that transparency of payment. I can't say wage because it's not technically wage, but I think you understand what I mean. Payment transparency,
Yeah.
which I think has the potential to be super beneficial in this scenario. Obviously, leaks really bad, a lot of sensitive information, not including the payments, which of course it's people's personal financial information, which is bad enough, but there is potential benefits, as I say.
I think even beyond the money aspect, I think the top kind of bunch, there was no confusion. No, everybody knew those people were going to be the top. Like, there's no ifs and buts, and that's fine. Like, shock, it's not a shock. But I think that something that really surprised, to be honest, I don't think I was surprised when I think about, maybe I'm sugarcoating it, is the lack of, like, people of color in the top amount, or female streamers. And there's been a lot, because I've been kind of grinding this on Twitter, reading about it, and there's a lot of kind of back and forth, people saying, well, this is viewers' fault. This is based on viewers' habits. And although I agree with that to a point, that, like, Twitch is they're owned by Amazon, who are a very very clever company in that regard. They can almost certainly find the time and resources and the money to kind of design something or an algorithm change to... I mean, I don't know how they would do it, but I'm not paid. It's not my job to kind of come up with that kind of thing. There's definitely something that could be done.
I don't know if we'll have time to.
If you would disagree, that's
no,
fine.
it's not. It's not disagreement. It's just a very long discussion based on how much I've looked into this. From my understanding, from watching, reading, and understanding what other people more knowledgeable than I, is that Amazon have very little care of Twitch, and one of the main reasons they acquired Twitch was because of the live streaming code, or the way they've done that, or the way that they can be displayed. And as a result of Amazon acquiring Twitch, they now sell that service, so companies can go and buy and set up their own Twitch for their own personal live stream events. So
I didn't know that. So that kind of changed how I feel a little, actually.
So as far as my understanding from reading is that Amazon don't have much care of Twitch, so I don't think they would go through doing something like that. In terms of people of colour and female streamers, I can't comment too much on the people of colour because I've not read any research into that or anything to do with that. The female streamers, there is a very good video I recommend to listeners by a guy called Devin Nash, who runs a talent agency. He's done a video called The Women of Live Streaming or something like that with Amaranth, I think, or Amaranth was in the thumbnail. But it's a very good video on the difficulties, because there's the meme that everyone puts around of women streamers having it easier, but I'd recommend watching that video as it gives statistical and numbers reasons why it is so much more difficult for female streamers because of various factors, which I've not watched the video in recent ones, so I wouldn't want to allude or say anything that could be that is going to be fact checked. But I'd recommend watching that video, as there are like much more difficult it is with female streamers getting to that level, or even the streaming as a whole. The people of color,
it's all so new. I mean, I was kind of firing from the hip with like a broad statements, I suppose, there when I said, but it's so nuanced. It's somebody would really need to kind of go through that list and be like, okay, this is the kind of community that they're streaming for. Like, I want to use the fighting game community as an example. Like, some of the top fighting game streamers aren't very high in the list, yet their viewers are pretty high. And I mean, so how does that correlate? Is like the Just Chatting streams, are those audience members more generous and sub? There's so much nuance that
definitely
can't be done on Twitter. And like, no matter how long a Twitter thread is, stuff's gonna get left out or bias. It's such a, and it's an interesting leak.
Definitely,
absolutely.
I mean,
and I hope it proves better things or makes better things happen. It probably won't. Twitch have got a bit of a track record. I hope Twitch aren't listening, but we'll see. It's early days, but it's so nuanced. It's
that. I mean, that is a point. Like I'm very honest about Twitch, which even though I stream on Twitch, I do anyway because one not listening because I'm a very small streamer. But I would say my current opinion on Twitch is that YouTube gaming is doing so many innovative things at the moment and have been for the last 3 to 6 months, and Twitch have not really done anything like that. And most of the most recent newsworthy or changes or occurrences have been quite negative. The raid's technically not from Twitch, but their response to it wasn't the best. They've recently announced, or wasn't really announced, but they revealed a paid boost system, which sounds horrendous. And then
It's even worse. It's even more horrendous when you understand the nitty gritty. Which watch the Devon Nash video on
there's
it,
another
which I found very.
His YouTube channel is a absolute golden haven for anyone interested in like Twitch and live streaming and marketing. So like high recommends. And then the most recent, the response to this leak as well has been very meh, because I read into this because I find it interesting and want to like be up to date, but many people who may not be on Twitter or may be on holiday or anything like that, they've really only just got an email saying we've reset the keys for security reasons and not said anything else. It just going from the emails. If you wasn't on Twitter, you wouldn't probably get any other information than that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm quite cynical of Twitch at the moment, but that's my
Mention the YouTube gaming thing. I think it's look at any powerhouse company from a consumer or in this case viewer point of view or stream point of view benefits from having a competitor.
Definitely.
So the bigger YouTube gaming gets, I know it's pretty big, but the better they start doing, Twitch can be like, hold on a sec, we need to pull up our boots here or whatever the term is. Whereas right now, I feel like Twitch are just in they feel like they're in a comfy position. They don't care. As long as they find new, weird, quirky ways to make money, they're happy. So hopefully YouTube gaming takes off.
I honestly think that YouTube gaming will be the main thing in about 2 to 3 years, because the things YouTube gaming, or at least my opinion, is it's like first in mind kind of thing. So Twitch, when you think live streaming, you think Twitch, and everyone doesn't think of YouTube gaming because that's you think of VOD platform. And there's like people saying like the UI isn't the best and the chat's not the best, but those are very small things to fix, as opposed to something like discoverability and machine learning, which would take I don't think Twitch would be able to do it, because it would take the amount of years that YouTube has existed to make its algorithm to do it, and I don't think Twitch has time to do that, nor the resources given my thoughts on Amazon's association with it, as opposed to Google, who's very like pro YouTube.
Yeah. Well, so an algorithm is very, maybe it's good's not the word for everybody, but an algorithm's doing its job when people can't understand it or try to fathom it and kind of find a way around the algorithm and fail, or at least long term. But YouTube, because I originally started streaming on YouTube before Twitch. I'd streamed on Twitch years and years and years ago, but I didn't stick with it. Whereas I started making YouTube videos back when I saw myself as a YouTuber. It didn't work out. And I started streaming on YouTube. And one of the great things about YouTube streaming is people can rewind.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Like that. And seriously, like, I don't know. See, you join a stream and somebody's at the end of a run, or you've just missed the run. You don't have to click into their profile, click the video, click the past broadcast or the active broadcast. You just drag
watch the pre-roll
tracking bar or whatever. Yeah, and that is just, it's so good. That is very, very good. Also the transcoding options, for those who don't know, on Twitch, if you're partnered, you'll always get the options for people to pick the stream resolution and so like 720p or 480 or 160 or whatever. So people on mobile, on big streamers, they're fine. They can pick 160p if they're on a 4G connection or whatever. Whereas smaller streamers don't always have those options available to them. So it means a smaller streamer, somebody joins with their phone and it's just buffering or whatever else because they've only got a locked transcode. Whereas YouTube, you get those options from the offset. I used to stream in 1080p, 60 FPS, and like the streams look great. Automatically gets VODed at the end of the day. It's already on YouTube. It's ready to go. But yeah, that was my YouTube gaming experience. That was before YouTube gaming was a thing, I think.
When it was just like a feature of YouTube itself, like the live feature.
So I would just do like live. I mean, it might have been. It was early days. This was years ago now. And then somebody was like, "You should just stream on Twitch. You should just stream on Twitch," and I did, and that's where I am. Competition is good. Look at like AMD and Intel.
Definitely.
It doesn't benefit the rich people, like the business. It benefits us, the normal person, and that's way more important.
Definitely. Anything else for the questions?
No, I think I've blabbed enough.
It's fine.
I'm sorry.
No, it's no worries. It's been all good. So you mentioned a few pieces, but if you could narrow down, just if you could only give one piece of advice for a starting no-hit runner who just entered, what would it be?
Oh man, I feel like people are gonna be like, "Oh, this guy's got a story for everything."
People love stories.
They do. Like, obviously, there's so many inspiring streamers out there. Like I mentioned, probably Seki was the main one who planted the seed. Inadvertently, he didn't specifically do it. He didn't like say, "Oh, you can do these runs." I felt like I wanted to try. But I've convinced loads of people who come into my stream saying like, "Oh, you can do this. You can do this." And what ends up happening is they start doing a run and they start streaming on their own, and I lose an extra viewer because they're streaming, doing their own runs and getting runs quicker than me. But seriously, I would. Obviously, anybody can do it. Don't feel like you can't. No matter how old you are, like I'm not saying somebody who's like 80 is going to come in and do it. I mean, they might, but
don't be ageist.
I'm not. I promise, I'm not. I think you'll be surprised what you can learn. Like, I was very much of the mindset that I can't do anything new in terms of skill wise, whereas doing these runs proved. And it's quite a fulfilling thing. It gives you a discipline. Like, I learned a discipline that I thought was long gone from like school, if that makes sense. And like being able to study a game, and it's very fulfilling. So advice would be, pick a game that you really want to do, follow somebody's guide, and also no, in fact, this is the main one. I know you only said one, so I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Accept criticism, because I think people. Even in the Hitless Discord, I think people can be quite defensive on their method of doing things. Like, people can be quite quick to be like, "Nah, this way is best. No, this way is the best." Whereas, if somebody's in your stream and says like, "Oh, I do this a little different," try not to push back on that, because you might find a gem of information or a nugget that you may not have considered. Whether you use what they've said or not, it might benefit you down the line. So be open for criticism. And bear in mind that there's some very talented, experienced runners in the Discord, and don't always question their judgment, because I think there's a lot to learn from the wise runners who've done it for a while, or just they're so knowledgeable in a game, for example. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it's fine. I think you went into around Immortal Severance, but a lot of runners do get into that one-hit PB hell and struggle, I'd say mentally, with trying to get it, knowing that they can get it, but just through RNG or unlucky, or just unfortunately failing moments. So if you could tell a time when you were struggling in that regard, and then how you got over it, if someone is in that situation.
I mean, it always comes back to Immortal Severance, because that was like the biggest thorn in my side. It really was. Believe it sounds so cliche, but at the end of the day, if you have a PB that's low enough, you've essentially gotten the run. You haven't gotten it, but you are capable of doing that run. Whether you've got like a 3-hit, 8-hit, whatever, especially a 1-hit, you've essentially got that run. And it's just overcoming a hurdle. Like, my hurdle for a lot of the time with the Mortal Severance was Owl. And it wasn't that I wasn't practiced. It's not that I couldn't do it. That feels like that's the kind of subconscious hump that's beyond Shura. The Owl fight is the thing that differentiates it. So it felt like that was the speed bump in the run for me for a long time. Advice for one-hit people. You've just got to keep going. And something that I see people do, and I know this will change from person to person, but sometimes when people have a low PB, and this isn't, I'm not saying they're wrong or I'm right here, but get in the habit of just, as soon as you get hit, reset. You finishing that run might not achieve anything. At the end of the day, you know the route. You know what you're doing. there's nothing for you to gain in that run at that stage, really. The whole point is once you get past that distance PB, that's when it really, you can do it. So I think just believe in yourself, as cliche and as cringy as it sounds, but seriously, like, you've got the run. People with these one-hit PBs, I know it's not official, but you've got it. You've just got to get it.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain,
Have
but
it on
it's
paper.
there. Yeah, you've got the groundwork, you've got the fundamentals. Just got to try and close it out. Nerves can be good. Nerves can be very beneficial. People perform well with nerves. Obviously, that differs from person to person, of course, but don't be afraid to take a break as well.
Yeah. If one game could be released tomorrow, whether an announced game or an unannounced game, a sequel to a game that you love, you never think is going to get a sequel, what game would it be?
I guess... See, I kind of want to see... Nah, Sekiro 2. Like, obviously, I'm very excited for Elden Ring, but that's coming. That's basically on our doorstep to a degree. Sekiro 2, because I think that would surprise people. Like, that game didn't get any DLC. Yes, it got the boss rush mode and, like, the skins and stuff. But I said before, I think that's the one that it needs a sequel. I mean, arguably Bloodborne as well, but I think I would be really, really happy for that. Really happy.
And final question is, what's in the future plans of AntAskew?
Oh, God. I really want to do... Like, I've kind of been inspired by yourself, like, with the guide side of things. I would really like to do a commentary over one of my runs, because although there's, like, other guides out there that probably do the same thing, because I follow someone's route kind of to the T, somebody might... Not that the other person's done it bad, but somebody might watch mine and be like, oh, the way he's discussed it, I found beneficial more so than somebody else. Not in a competitive way at all, but I think somebody might get something from it. So I guess guides. In terms of runs, I'm a one run at a time person. And I'm hoping I finish Hollow Knight before Elden Ring, because everybody's just going to be dedicating time to Elden Ring. For me, it's not going to be, I want to run it straight away. Because one thing with running that kind of sours casual gaming in a degree, you play too safe. You start playing games too safe, and there's a lot of fun when you first play a Souls game is being greedy. Going into the boss and being greedy. And, like, to me, that's something that you shed as a habit once you start doing challenge runs. So I'm looking forward to pick Elden Ring up and be shit at the game. Sorry to swear, but shit at the game. Or hopefully be shit at the game, having to learn from the ground up and have fun as a gamer again, not as a challenge runner. So, like, people who are rushing who are going to rush through it for world's first, fine, I understand why, but I really just want to enjoy it.
It's going to be strange putting levels into health again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be crazy. But yeah, I'm really excited for so it's gonna be like January is just Elden Ring, unless I turn out not to like it. But I can't really see that.
Sweet, lovely. Well, Ant, I really appreciate the time and discussion. It's been fun. I hope you've enjoyed.
I have. Honestly, I was so when Loci asked me to do this. In fact, can you set the record straight? It is Loci, isn't it?
It's technically Loci. I have been going by Loci recently because it's the first thing that comes most people to mind. So I have been going by Loci recently, but it's technically Loci. But
yeah, I've been doing it right then. That's
yeah.
Good. No, honestly, it was when you asked me, I was like, oh, what a pleasure. And like, I was really, when you asked us, I was really looking forward to it, because I've done podcasts before. I used to do my own podcast. I'm not trying to pimp it out here.
No worries.
But it's something I enjoy doing, and especially something I'm really passionate about. As you can see, I've blabbed on for probably longer than you thought, so I'm sorry about that. But no, I really appreciate being asked. I really, really do.
No worries. Do you want to plug anything or shout out to anything?
I want to shout out. It sounds so crazy to your guides, and I really mean that, because I use them, and I think they're so, whether just the way you kind of talk or teach, I find them beneficial. Zaffa, his guide for Bloodborne is the best. Sorry to other guide creators. And also, I guess my Twitch and Twitter, which is AntAskew. Oh, and I guess YouTube as well. They're all AntAskew, AntAskew.
Yep. All those links will be in the description, so you'll be able to go and check him out, send him a follow. Sure you'll enjoy. So thanks for listening, and she'll catch you later.